Welcome, everyone, to Julia Tilson's Author Talk. Welcome, Julia. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're so thrilled to have you on. It's exciting to have a local author here. So my name is Jennifer Whip. I'm the Child and Youth Services Librarian at Gravenhurst Public Library. Speaking of Gravenhurst, you're local, you're a published author. You want to tell us about yourself? Give us some details.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have lived in Gravenhurst my whole life. I went to Muskoka Beach Grove Public School. I went to Gravenhurst High School. And now I'm work from home, and I'm also a published author. So I have one short story in Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, 25th Anniversary Edition. Thank you, Jennifer. And I'm working on manuscripts, and the idea is to get those ones published in the next year or so.
Oh, amazing. Congratulations on getting published. I think especially in our generation, a lot of us grew up with the Chicken Soup for the Soul book. So, just
absolutely
to be published in, so recognizable. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, like you say, this is the 25th anniversary of the teen edition. So I'm 25, right? It's been my whole life since it came out, which is really exciting.
Yeah. Well, most of my cousins, I know most of my cousins read all the Chicken Soups. I've read a bunch. They're, good. So it's nice that you're able to write a nice story for a Chicken Soup for the Soul book.
Thanks.
How did you get started writing?
Well, I have been writing as long as I can remember. I was always a storyteller. There's videos of me as a 3-year-old toddler just telling stories. I had great teachers in school. I remember Mrs. Gammon at Beach Grove when I was in grade 2. She had me do a project. I could do whatever I want. So I wrote a book about koalas. I did a research project and I made it into a book. And then in grade 4, I had Mrs. McClellan, and we did a study on how to create mythical creatures and make a story about that. So I was very proud of a story I wrote about a flying cat in grade 4.
Oh, a flying cat. These stories are getting cuter and cuter. Koala, flying cat. Oh.
Yeah, that's my childhood, koalas and flying cats. But I just always had ideas in my head, and actually in grade 4, I made up this character based on medieval studies that we did in class, and I'm I want to make a character who would live in medieval times, and she is the subject of my longest novel that I've worked on since I was 13.
Wow. So you started that when? In grade 5? Because it was medieval times.
Yeah, so I did medieval studies in grade 4, and that's when I first invented this character. And my sister and I, we both had characters that we would play because we were kids. We would use imaginative play. And then the story just developed layers and layers, and we kept adding more details. And then when I was about 13, I thought, I need to write this all down. And so that's my longest manuscript that I'd like to bring to the published world, hopefully self-published maybe next year.
Amazing. That's such a cool, to have worked on something for basically your entire life.
Yes, that's the character's she's
since
grown
you were
with
a kid.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so cool, Julia. I think we all have cherished childhood memories, but not a lot of us can say that we're writing it into a book, So that's really neat.
Yeah, the characters, they had accents. I watched these old home movies, and my sister and I are speaking in these mock British accents, just pretending we're the characters.
That's adorable. Oh, it's nice. So has your sister read the manuscript?
Oh, yes. So she lived it. She's actually my co-editor. She's been looking over it for me, so she's still got a few chapters to go. But once I sort of get the green light from her, I'm going to start printing it.
Oh, amazing. I can't wait to, I hope I get to read it. I can't wait.
Thank you.
What's your writing process like? Where do you get your ideas, and what do you do from start to finish kind of deal?
So like I said, with that first story, it started with the character. Mm-hmm. And I wrote all the first draft by hand, except one chapter. I skipped ahead. I was really excited and typed it on the computer way before I got there. But everything else, I have notebooks in my room. I always have pencils in my room, and often late at night, instead of reading myself to sleep, I just write down whatever's in my head. So that story, like I said, started with a character, and then I've done 2 other stories that are about 25 to 30,000 words each. So they're about half the length of the first one. And those ones actually, they came from different places. So a good way that I like to come up with stories is when I get a book at the bookstore, I sort of look at the cover and I start imagining what's going to happen.
Oh.
And often that's not what happens at all. I remember I was in Miss Jameson's grade 9 English class, and we were looking at covers for Robinson Crusoe. We didn't even read the book, but I saw the cover and I went, oh my gosh, I want to tell a story that would match this cover. And it's totally different from Robinson Crusoe. It happened again in grade 12. I read Cassiopeia in Miss Humphrey's French class, and I went, I want to write a science fiction story about the stars. And then that's what my third story ended up being. So they weren't anything like the original books, but I just went, oh my goodness, I have a story to tell just based on this cover.
That's amazing. So it's kind of like, you know, the old saying, don't judge a book by its cover, but you did, and like something really cool came out of it.
Well, exactly, because I judged it totally differently and realized, hey, this isn't how the story went, but I could tell a story like this instead, right?
Yes, exactly. And it just kind of shows, you know, the different perspectives we all have and takes on things. Like you could look at a book cover and have one opinion, and I look at it and just could go somewhere totally different. That's amazing.
Exactly. When the author took it somewhere different altogether, right? So
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, you know, when I feel like when it's the same when we read a book and we hear a description of a character, even though we're all reading the same description, we all picture the character a little bit differently. Like, you know, we'll have our own take on things, which I love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I ask what made you decide to send your story into Chicken Soup?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I told you, I've been working on these manuscripts, and I just wanted to establish myself as a writer, as an author, because it's a hard industry to get into. So I just, you know, I spent the last year doing research, and I found this article that said, well, you know, if you build up your resume a bit, submit to Chicken Soup for the Soul. And I'm like, that's a great idea. So I looked up the topics that they had a call out for, and there was a call out for teen stories, and they had these different prompts. And I went, you know what? Last year I had a really meaningful closure to something that happened in high school. And I thought that would be a good story. So I typed it up on the computer, looked it over once and hit send, and kind of forgot about it. And then it was a few months later, I was just on break at lunch, and I work from home with my mom. And an email came through on my phone, and it said that I was in the first round for selection for the story. And could they have my permission to move forward? They said, like, it's not a guarantee that you're in, but most of the ones that make it to the first round get published. Just, can we have the rights? I'm like, yes, absolutely. So, and then the more confirmations came in, they said, you know, you're in the next round of selections, and then congratulations, you are in the book.
Oh my gosh. And what was your reaction when you found out you were in the book? Like, who was the first person you told? What did you do? I feel like I would be like, you know, celebrating.
I was, yeah. So I had to be a little quiet. I came through while the daycare kids, I do a home daycare, but they were asleep. So I had to be a little subtle. But I ran over to my mom, and I just showed her the message as it came in, and she was like so excited for me. I think I called my granny next because my dad and my sister were at work. And so I sort of trickled the information slowly because I said, you know, I'm just in the first selection round. I might not get in. Didn't want to raise everyone's hopes. But then it was like, okay, everyone, I'm in. You need to know, right?
It happened. Woo!
It did. Thank you. Yes.
Oh, congratulations. And like, can you tell us a little bit about the story and the general premise and inspiration behind it?
Absolutely. So it's called a high school crush. And it's essentially that. It's about a guy I knew pretty much my whole life. We'd met in kindergarten, and how as we got to high school, I developed feelings for him. But it didn't work out, and things didn't end well. And so it's really about how I was able to grow after high school and look back on our high school experience and say, you know what? We didn't make the best choices back then, but what's a choice I can make now as a young adult to rectify things? And so I think the universe sort of appreciated me doing that, because I told my best friend crush about the story, but he's in the city and I hadn't seen him in about 5 years until this past August when I ran into him in Toronto for the first time, and it was incredible. And I gave him a
What
book
are
right
the chances?
away. And it happened 2 days in a row, like totally different times, and he might not know quite how famous I've made him now, but
well, you're going to be definitely, famous in all of our books, right? Like Small Town, we all know you're published. I keep hearing from everyone, oh, I heard her on the radio, I heard her interview, like it must be pretty exciting. And I feel
really
like you know, being a local author and a local person, it gives all of our kids, like in Gravenhurst, someone to look up to. Who do you look up to? Like, who are your role models?
Well, my family, I've always looked up to my parents, for sure. They always just told me to go for it. They never had expectations that I had to follow the same career path everyone else did. They just said, you know, do whatever you want. And I'm like, thank you, I will. And here's my first thing I did, right?
Bing,
and
bing,
then,
boom.
Yeah. And then in terms of like my writing inspirations, I always liked Cornelia Funke. She was one of my favorites growing up. I loved her Inkheart books. I'm super excited for book 4 to come out after all these years.
I've read part of the first one, but I didn't keep going. But like the stories are so good. I don't know. I'm pretty sure we have the first one at the library, but I'm gonna have to look to see if we have the whole series, because that would be one that we should have.
I could lend you them, Jen, because and the author, I have her autograph in them. I ordered book plates from her, so she's really awesome.
Wow.
So I'm like, I want to be an author like you, where you're just so immersive with the fans, where you make people proud, you know, to read your books and to do these sort of simple things, right? Like I've sent her emails and she'll reply, or her assistant does. So
wow.
I just want to have that same personal relationship with my readers.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, speaking of like the library and books and authors, we have your book now in our library. So anyone watching this, if you want to read Julia's story, it's the first one. The first one in Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, and we have it now at the library. You can sign it out. And also, we have them available for sale, too, if you want to buy one. Julia, you're selling them too, right? So
I am,
if you're interested, you can get a copy. Just let us know.
Exactly.
Yeah. What advice do you have for young aspiring writers? Like, what do you wish you knew when you started out?
Yeah, so there's a few different things. You know, when I was in school, we focused so much on the book structure and symbolism and character development. And I remember, you know, trying to write stories while at the same time I was doing an essay about all the symbolism in Lord of the Flies. And I thought, oh, I wish I could write symbolism like that. And it felt overwhelming. But my advice would be like to just focus on the story and do all the fancy stuff later. Like, you know, when I reread my first book for edits, I'm like, okay, I want to make this better. And then I picked out like 3 different things I could make into symbols that I'm like, oh, I didn't even notice that I mentioned this so many times, right? Like, this could become something. So my advice in that aspect would be just like focus on the plot. And then my other advice would be to write about what you know. And if you don't know about something, but you want to write about it, then learn about it. So for instance, on the side, I'm a salsa dancer. I used to love the school dances. That was a huge part of like my teenage years and my years at Beech Grove. So I was just thinking about it tonight, and all 3 of the books I've written have some sort of a dance in them, whether it's a ball or allusions to prom. Dancing was a big part of my formative years, and so I put that into my stories because it's something I love. Yes. I didn't know that about you. That's a fun fact. That's amazing. And if anyone wants to join us at Gull Lake Park, we're doing Latin dance on Sunday afternoons. So. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Yeah, I'm not hosting it, but I've been there every time. So that's funny you mentioned it, because I'm commuting from Barrie right now to come to Gravenhurst, but like I was literally just yesterday looking up dance classes. That is it's just what this gentleman who's moved to town, and he's teaching Latin dance at Gull Lake Park. So I have a friend I invited who's coming from the city this weekend just for the class. So. Oh my gosh, that's really cool. And like, you are like the queen of coincidences, I feel. Just, you know. Oh, that's so funny you say that, because like that is the theme of my 3rd book.
Okay, but you see, it's true. Queen of coincidences. Like, what are the chances of that happening? Come on.
See, that's you'll like my book. It's yeah. I won't reveal anything because it's not published, but coincidences are like the whole theme of it.
Oh, I would love that.
I think like in Inkheart, where they could write things and then read it aloud and it happens, like I am a silver tongue, like from the books. I write something and then the next day these things just happen.
That's amazing. And so you have your second book and your third. And so is that where you're going next? Like just working on those, your sister's editing? Like what are your plans?
Yeah, so actually this afternoon, like I was looking over, I'm sort of doing them out of order, the way that just feels right. You know, I'm waiting for my sister to finish the first book, but my neighbor, and she's a good friend of mine, looked at my third one, and so I've just been working through those edits. And yeah, that's really been my focus, is I want to turn them into novels.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, like I've never written a book, but like how many pages is like 20? Because you said one's like 30,000 words or something. Like how many pages is that? Like what does that translate to?
Yeah, so I'm trying to stretch it out a little. It's just a bit over 100 pages, so it's not huge. But
that's a lot more than I think most of us write.
Yeah. But then like my other one, I think it's about 65,000 words. So that's, you know, well over 200 pages.
Yeah, that's a big book.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So is there anything else that you want to share with us that comes to mind that you want to tell us while you're here?
So I would just say, you know, if you want to follow me, maybe Jen can put the links, but I have a website. It's juliatilsonwrites.com, and I have a blog, so you can follow that. There's also the option to join it. I think when you go right to the site, you can log in. So I invite anybody you can join with Facebook, Gmail, whatever you want, and then you'll get added to my email list, so you can keep up with me on that. You can also follow me on goodreads.com/Julia Tilson. That's my author profile. And my other advice is just read and write. Like I'm not even a strong reader. I wish I was. I don't have the memory for it, but you know, I'm always thinking of stories. I'm always reading stories. I reread books. I reread all my favorites. So just, you know, you need to, like I said earlier, you need to know what you're writing. And then just write, you know, take those risks and don't worry about writing something awful, because that's why you self-edit, right?
Yes, and get it done. It doesn't have to be perfect. Done, not perfect, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and just go for it.
Oh, well, fantastic, Julia. Thank you so much for talking with us today. I'll definitely post the links to your website and your Goodreads profile for sure.
Awesome.
It was amazing to host you. Congratulations again on being published in Chicken Soup, and I really can't wait to read what you do next.
Thank you. I can't wait to share it.
All right. Well, I guess I'll leave it there and say goodbye, good night. We'll be following you.
Thank you. Yes. Take care, Jen.
Bye.